Okay, I have my 2005 Dodge Durango. It's the SLT. It has the 5.7 liter Hemi engine in it, and we're going to be replacing what I consider to be the most important gasket on this vehicle. So what we're going to be replacing is these intake gaskets here today, and here is the part number. It's a Felpro, which these work just fine. So there's that. And there's not a lot of gaskets in here. It's just some little square looking gaskets, but they are very, very important. That's what they look like. Ever since they started using, the plastic intakes and stuff, these gaskets have become more and more important. With this vehicle in particular, I've seen these where for some reason water, for whatever reason, it will trickle down behind your cowl, or you could be washing it at a car wash or have a heavy rain or whatever the reason. It'll get water into one of the back cylinders there and actually cause it to lock up and knock a rod through the side of your engine. It seems to be that it's the passenger rear side that's the most prone to it. Now, even with one situation, I had an engine with a hole in it and I was replacing it, and the engine that I had replacing it with was just sitting outside, and just from sitting there it had accumulated water in the rear of that cylinder there. So it's very important to make sure that you replace these. If you don't know if they've been replaced, replace them anyways. It's only like $15 for these gaskets, and it could get water in there and it's going to destroy your engine. And these engines, as you know, are very, very expensive. So I can't stress how important that these gaskets are to keep these replaced, because regardless of what you do, sometimes you can't prevent water from getting in the engine bay. So you need to make sure that those gaskets are not leaking. So we're going to go ahead and get started here. Okay, so here's a look at the engine bay. You can see how there's just no room to get to this intake or anything as it is. So what we're going to have to do at first is remove this cowl before we can do anything. And it's pretty dirty in here, but like I said, with those intakes, I don't know if they've been replaced or not, and there's no way I was taking a risk of cleaning this engine off or anything at this point. So we're going to go ahead and get started. We're going to get a socket over here and get on our windshield wipers. We've got a couple right here we're going to have to remove, and we've got this some kind of wire running across there. But anyways, we're going to get started with those, and we'll also keep in mind where these are located. If you want, put a mark so you get them back into the place that they go, so they're not getting out of adjustment. So put a mark, or just take a good mental note of where those go when you go to put them back on. Okay, so we've got these 15 millimeters. We're just going to get in here and take these loose, and then we've got these two over here that we're going to take loose as well. These will just come right off of here. Usually there's some splines. Well, there are some splines, and you have to kind of wiggle them up off there, but usually they'll come without too much difficulty. Sometimes you have to bend it a little bit. You may have to get a screwdriver and lightly lift up on it if it doesn't want to come off of there too easily. Okay, I just wanted to show you, I was using my little Pitman or tie rod tool to pop this off. I got the nut still on there just so I had more space to grab it to, but you could also use like a 3-jaw puller or something if yours are stuck. I mean, these were really no joke. Just you can see the indentation that put in it right there, popping this off here. I don't know why it's that tight, but that's what I used. If you got a 3-jaw puller, it actually probably work better for this, but I'm just using what I got, and I'm going to attempt to use that on these over here because I can't find my 3-jaw puller. But you're going to need something, because I was trying to pry it and tap on it, get it loose, and it wasn't budging, and you don't want to damage anything, so just get yourself a puller if you're having trouble with these. Okay, with a puller, those pop off of there really easily, and we can get these out of the way. Those are just pretty stubborn on mine, and didn't want to turn loose from those splines. So I don't know if yours will be like that, but these were stuck. So now we'll go ahead and remove the cowl at this point. Okay, so holding this cowl on, we just got some of these little plastic clips. Just pop those up. Up here we got some T35s that go on each side. That's what those look like. And you should be able to give this a pull from back here where it's clipped in. It should start coming loose. Just make sure you got the little plastic snaps that go along up through here. Get those out. Okay, and somebody's got some type of wire. I'm gonna have to, I got a ground wire I'm gonna have to remove before I can take this off. But said there's some clips it goes into back there. It kind of, you can see that right there is broken. These things are pretty well useless when they get old. It's just dry and brittle and cracked. But I'm going to disconnect that wire that's going right here and go ahead and remove it from out of my cowl. Okay, so here we are removing this out of the way. And now we've got to go ahead and start working on removing this. We're going to have some bolts, and you see we got a brace that runs over this, and we're going to need to get that out. And we're also going to be removing this wiper. Well, yeah, we're going to have to get all that out of the way too. So we're going to go ahead and work on this, getting these bolts out. Okay, this one right here is a 13mm over here on this side. Okay, now we're coming over here to the passenger side. We'll go ahead and remove this 13 next. Okay, right up here in the middle, we've got these two 10mm. We're going to go ahead and remove these. Okay, and there's those two bolts out of there. Now we can go ahead and pull this brace back, and we'll be going ahead and removing this. Go ahead and put your screws, bolts back where they go so you're not losing them. Okay, we're going to go ahead and remove this windshield wiper housing. We got a clip under here. Looks like we've got a safety lock, if you can see that. I'm going to need to push that over before we can squeeze that. Okay, so when you push that, you can push it with a screwdriver. You push it back to what would be your right. It pops out, then you can just press it right here, and it should release pretty easily. So it just goes to that motor right there. Very easy to get this off. We got us a 10mm up here. Got us a 10mm here, 10mm right up here. So we're going to go ahead and remove those now that we've got the wire clip off. Okay, there's this one right here that come out of there earlier. Let's take that back out. We'll put it back into here so we don't forget where it goes. Now we're just going to work on getting these two 10mm right over here. You'll need a little bit of an extension to get this one up here easily. Okay, and all those bolts are the same size, so you don't have to worry about any mix-ups on those. And we got this completely loose. We're just going to go ahead and get it out of here. Set this aside. And there was that connector that went to that. So here's another look. What we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and start removing some of the ductwork here, and we've got this hose running over to here. We're going to disconnect that, start removing some of this and getting this duct out of the way. We got a couple of 8mm or whatever size there, and then this will just pop up off of here with that loose. So we're going to go ahead and do that, and then we'll get to work on removing this up under here. Okay, so we just took our 8mm and loosened these two bands off here and here. We're going to go ahead and pop this up. We'll just move that out of the way. Now we can just pop the top of our air filter off here and make it a little easier than having to disconnect that over there. We got one more right here. I think the next thing we're going to go ahead and get on that negative and get that disconnected so we don't have any mishaps. So here, you disconnect it, you pretty much just disconnect it there. You don't have to loosen this. And just take this whole piece and set it aside. Now this is supposed to have a little piece of foam or something that helps to catch that oil. There's a lot of excessive oil comes through here. I've seen some people put in catch cans, but you can see that it's starting to ruin this air filter already, so it needs to have a piece of foam in there to help slow that down. So we're just going to leave that like that for now, and we're going to get to work over here. We've got several of these 10mm. We've got one right here. So we've got some connectors. There's another one over here. So we're going to get started with these. Just squeeze on this connector. Go ahead and get that loose. So just squeeze that right there. And if you need to label stuff, you can. Just the main thing is to remember where things are located. So we're going to go ahead and get a little bit of an extension. We'll get on that 10 right there. And sometimes these can be pretty snug. And then we'll get on that one over there next. Okay, and those, once you loosen them, should stay on there, I think, because they've got a device to keep them from falling off. But with those two, you got that one. This one up here by the sensor, we got that sensor loose. This will just pull forward and pull right off of your throttle housing right there. You can see that just goes right in there, and it looks like this seal is all bunched up, but anyways, just pull that straight off, and then we got that out of the way, and then we'll just get on some of this other stuff here next. And you can see that doing a spark plug change on this, you've got 16 spark plugs, as you know, and it's no joke. It's no joke getting in here to these. And while you're doing this, if you need spark plugs, it's not a bad time to probably go ahead and tackle them. But you know, depending on which spark plugs you get, it can get pretty expensive. You know, depending on how expensive the spark plugs are. You know, this side is not too horrible over here on the drivers, but as you get over here, it gets pretty cramped up. You got lots of stuff in the way and everything. So as you can see, we're going to have to remove some stuff up here, you know, but you can look at it this way. We're going to go ahead and just pull that right off of your little housing there. But you can look at it this way. These little $10, $15 gaskets can destroy your engine if they fail. So this is definitely something that you want to tackle. And we're going to go ahead and disconnect our negative now so we're not having any mishaps. Okay, we just got our 10mm on here. We should be able to wiggle it the rest of the way off. Okay, one of the first things I'm going to remove, I'm going to get a screwdriver. You can see that clip right back there. We're going to pull that up and off of there, and we should have enough wiggle room in this that we don't have to remove it. Down here we've got a couple of 8mm, but if we remove that, then we got to get another gasket and it may leak, so without a new gasket, so I don't really want to disturb that if I can keep from it. But we're going to need to disconnect it back there. We're going to go ahead and do that. And there's that little clip. It just pulls right up and off there with your fingers very easily. Okay, the next thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to start working on disconnecting these spark plug wires. You got a safety lock on your coil pack. Give that a push over and then just push it down right there. Pull that off. So go ahead and disconnect that. And then you got your wire that is going to connect into this. You need to pull that off. There's that. And then for this other one, it's got to be pulled out. And so there's all there is to that. We're just going to disconnect it and leave it like that. Now one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and label each one of these. I don't want any confusion when it's going back together, so we're just going to label, number them, whatever, just to make sure you get it back in the right spot. So we're just going to do each one of these this way. Once we get all of the wires completely loose, then we're going to work on popping this assembly up and off here. If you squeeze right there, this will pop up, and we should have a place over here where we can do the same thing. You can see how that will just pop out of there. Just push that in and that pops up, so we don't have to remove these wires and have to resort these. So we're just gonna pop this whole thing up off. Once we get all of our wires labeled, we're gonna pull this whole wire assembly up and out of the way. Okay, so we're just gonna go through here and label these so there's no confusion. So it's gonna be 1, 3, 5, 7. We'll also put a mark here so there's no mistakes. 2, 4, 6, 8. And we're just going to do that all the way down through there, and we'll do the same thing with our wire. We'll make sure that we just go ahead and label them, that way there's no chance for any error mistakes going back together. So we'll go ahead and put a number on that, just like we're doing for the spark plug wires. And we're just going to continue on, and once we get them all labeled, we'll pop this up and off of here. See how this comes off pretty easily. Okay, so we got this loose. This one back here, this little clip, you go in there with a little screwdriver. This one was broken, or one or the other, but I've got all these labeled, and we've got the coil pack wire labeled as well as we were going through this. So just kind of make a mental note of, see, there's that little clip. Just go in there with a screwdriver. It's the one back here is hidden right there. So you just got 4. You got one there, and then up here, and then right there. So you move those wires out of the way, you get in there with a screwdriver, push that over, and it just lifts up just like this. So you got the whole thing. You may need something to stand on, like I said, to get back here to those back ones to make it a little easier. But now you got that completely out of the way. We can move on. We're gonna have to get we won't need to take the injectors loose. We can leave that on there, but we're gonna have to disconnect our fuel right here. You want to get the pressure off here, or you can do it the other way by pulling the fuse for the pump and simply cranking it up and burning the fuel out of there. This clip, just push up on. You may need a screwdriver. It clips, it hooks in the back right there, as you can see. But this front, just get you a screwdriver and pry up right there, and don't drop it. It should have like a safety lanyard on it or something, but it don't, so make sure to do that. And you'll need to go ahead and disconnect. You'll need a fuel tool to do that. So we'll have to find the appropriate size. You can buy these little plastic ones that are pretty cheap. I'll show you what it looks like here in a moment. We're just going to disconnect that right there. And I think you can start to see the 8mm down in here. And some of them are tricky to get to. There's a rusty one in the back. I believe there's even some in the back. It's been a while since I've done this, but they're hidden around here. And I believe, like I said, there's some tricky ones to get to. There's one there. And it seems like there's one back there in the back that's difficult to get to, but I'm not for sure just yet. So we're gonna get the ones we can get to. So I went ahead and got the pressure off so I can disconnect that line. Okay, I've just disconnected this fuel line just using one of these little plastic on connectors. I've done had the pressure relieved and it just will pull off there. Just work with it. It's got those little connections in there that bite on to that and hold on. And we just need to get that back off. And definitely makes it easier to have something to stand on to reach some of this stuff. But this is the little kit that I've got, and it just has a bunch of these sizes. It's you can get these pretty much anywhere. This one says air conditioning and fuel line disconnect tool, and these little plastic ones work great. I've used them for many different types of connections to break them loose. So we're just getting that fuel line, and we're going to go ahead and start disconnecting and getting in here and getting some of these 8mm. You'll need an extension to get down there, and we're just going to start working those out. Okay, I've been going through here with a extension and a shorter one for the backs, but just to recap kind of where these are, we got one down here, this one up here, and it's a little tricky to get to, but it will come loose even with that AC compressor there. Got one here. You come over here, there's one, just loosen them off, they'll stay in place. Got one here, got one back here, one back there, so one over here, and then we got one there, and then back there in the back, you can see. So we got all those loose. Now we're going to try to just leave this and try to wiggle it out of here, but we'll see what happens. So we got our fuel line loose. We're going to go ahead and disconnect this harness. You got to push this safety tab back. You may have to use a screwdriver And I'm going to go ahead and squeeze that and pop that loose. Okay, so there that is. Push back and just push down really hard right there. You can also use a screwdriver. Get that loose from that harness there. Now I'm going to get this vacuum hose, twist it off of here or pop it out, whichever is easiest. And you'll hear it lose some vacuum, but that's alright. We got to get this disconnected, and there's that. So now we got that pesky thing out of the way, and looks like we've got another harness back here in the back, and we've also got one of those safety locks, those red ones that you slide to one side. We're going to get back there with a screwdriver and push that till we hear it pop. And it is not wanting to move too easy. I'm going to need my other hand here. Okay, there's that one loose. I don't know if it's from the heat or what. That clip was really stuck. I had to push it really hard to get it through there. We got that loose, and we're just going to keep an eye on stuff here. We should have everything for the most part, but that don't mean that we do. We're just going to play it by ear. See how we got it? We've got it loose here with those. So we may have to go ahead and take those 8mm out down there. It just depends on if I can move this over enough to get some slack. I'm just going to see what it does. Okay, went ahead and I just took these loose over here because there wasn't enough slack. It just wasn't going to work. And I just popped it right out of there. I've got no slack. I didn't have to take them completely out. Hopefully I'm not going to disturb that gasket enough, but if I can find one, I'll replace it. You can see I've got plenty of slack to move it back there out of the way. So I'm going to need my other hand. I'm just fixing to start trying to work it up out of here. I think I should have clearance now. If not, we'll move some stuff as need be. So it's been a while since I've done this, so we'll see how it goes here. Okay, so the very front little nub you see right here is wanting to be stubborn. It's located right where it's underneath this AC compressor, so it's just the only thing that's making it basically impossible to remove, because you don't have room to push this thing back or wiggle it, and just making it harder than it needs to be. You got a tensioner 3/8 right there, nothing to it. Push it in that direction. Just pop your belt right off right here. You don't have to remove the whole thing. We've got a bolt right down there. I believe it's a 12 maybe. Got to remove that little ear. And we've got a couple of bolts right up here in the front. I'm going to get those long bolts. Got a studded bolt on this side and one over here. And also this thing will be sitting on here kind of snug, so we'll have to kind of like pop it up out of here a little bit. But we get it up, we can pull it forward out of our way, because it's just making it impossible at this point. Okay, this back here is a 13. I'm getting loose on this little ear on the back of this compressor. We'll go ahead and fish that out of there. We'll get to work on these up here in the front. Okay, so we got those two bolts out with a 7, let's see, what was I using? I think it was a 16, but anyways, here they are, and we got those out laying there. Once you get them broke loose, they come out real easy. Okay, I'm sorry, those are 15s. I threw the wrench down. I couldn't remember what they were. But anyways, we got those out. We're going to see if we can't get this compressor. I said make sure that you get your Okay, so we got this pried up here and out of there. We're going to try to move it forward a little bit and give me some more slack now. Okay, so there's a temperature sensor down here you got to disconnect. You can come in through the top or the side and push down and just slip it off of there. It's kind of not real hard to get to. You can use a pick tool to help you out too. It's just right down in there. It has to come up so you can start lifting the front of this up. Okay, it was still really snug bringing it out. I took the 4 long bolts out of this throttle housing just so I could get it down and have enough clearance because it was wanting to hit up there. Not a big deal. But now it's completely loose and we can pull it up and out of here. Okay, correction, I missed one vacuum hose that goes right there. Just took that off. Okay, finally we're able to get it up here. Okay, and you can see the condition of these, not very pretty. Completely flat, and we'll have to get a vac up in here and clean this out. But you can see how when water comes off of here, it wants to come down here and run, and it usually winds up running to the back. I guess it's a little bit lower, and the water just follows the path of least resistance, and it wants to run down in here and usually winds up going down in this rear, and this is where you'll get a rod throwed through usually. So, and these have not been dealt with, it doesn't look like, in any way. They are in pretty bad shape, but that just shows you, the way this is set up, it's easy for water to come off and get down in here into these. So these intake seals, really cheap but very important, and you can see the condition. I mean, these are flattened out, and you can see how air was escaping, oil's escaping up there, and that tells you that water can get in here. And these are all completely flat, and they're not supposed to be that way. So these have probably, this has got over 200,000, and these have probably not ever been dealt with. Don't forget your little ones you got in here too, those little black ones there. So we're going to get a pick tool and work on digging these out. We'll get these and hopefully get this set back into place. Okay, and you really need one of these pick tools to dig these things off. They really get hot and just kind of melt themselves on there, so to speak. And you got to dig them out. Those smaller ones in particular really like to stick, and doesn't matter which way, as long as you get the little nub going where it goes. And you can see how these are sticking up now. I mean, of course, when we clamp it down, it's going to compress it some, but this is how these are sticking up to start with. So these are going to be sealing really nice. These are sticking up about 1/8 of an inch. So we're just going to continue on. We'll get all these in and go ahead and get a vac and clean that surface up there. And so it's very easy to put these in once you get it off. Okay, so we gave this a good clean down with some starter fluid and cleaned it off pretty well. It's not perfect, but it's pretty good, and we vacuumed it out. So big difference, as you can see there. Okay, so we've got our seals on. We're going to go ahead and just get this set back into place. Like I said, I've got the throttle housing loose right now because it just makes it easier to fit it up under there. Okay, so the first thing we've done was setting up in here and pulled this AC compressor forward and pushed our temperature sensor back on so we don't forget that. And we're just going to go ahead and start lining it up. Said with that throttle housing off, it made things a lot easier. Of course, we've got some connections to make. We're going to get our bolts lined up here first. I'm just going to start lining those up and moving it around as we need it till we can get those started loosely. Okay, we got our front two just loosely started here, and I'm just going to start loosely getting the rest of them going. No big deal. And we'll make sure that they're all lined up before we go to tightening anything. Okay, what we're doing now, we're going to go in a crisscross pattern, and we're tightening these to 105 inch-pounds. And we're just going to work our way around it. Starting from the middle and working our way out in a crisscross pattern. So we're going to go here, from like here to here, and then we'll move out toward the edge, and then we'll move back there, and just back and forth kind of. Okay, after going through and torquing those, we just went back through and checked them a couple more times to make sure they were in fact all torqued down right. So now we can go ahead and start hooking stuff back up, and we got a hose hiding back here. Just push that back on. We got this goes back on here, and we've got our connectors back here. Nothing big. It's just a matter of reaching back in here and getting stuff reconnected. And this big one here, I'm just going to need my hand to get that. Okay, and just make sure to lock your red safety lock back. We're going to put this one, just slide it back on here. Get a good click and lock that back. Go ahead and reconnect our gas. And we do have a safety clip that goes on there as well. We'll get back on. Okay, so we just slide this back under here. Give that a push down. Okay, I've just slipped the pipe back in. We're going to go ahead and get that clip back on there before we go to tightening that. Okay, so we got that clip back on there. We're going to go ahead and start tightening up on those 8mm down here. Okay, with that down there secured and that secured, I think we're going to go ahead and work on getting our wires and stuff reconnected to the plugs and the coil packs here. Okay, we got everything labeled, and we even labeled down here so there was no confusion. And we're just going to set these back up here where they go, and this will clip. Let's get these sorted out here, and these will clip back down onto here, as you can see, back in those spots. Let's go ahead and push that down, and then we'll start working these plugs. Said they're all numbered, so just a matter of getting them back into place here. No big deal. Once we get these hooked up, we'll go ahead and get our connectors here, start fastening them. We're just going to do these one at a time, just like we took them off. Okay, so I'm just going through and connecting these now. Just make sure it's fully pushed on there. You won't be able to lock that. We've got all of our, make sure that you push these on. We've got all these connected to our spark plugs. Now just kind of double checking a few things. I'm not in no hurry to put the throttle on there. It's 4 bolts, it's not a big deal. I want to kind of just make sure I've got everything else. I think I'm fixing to go ahead and set this compressor back into place here. Alright, I just finished tightening these. I started this bolt in the front of the compressor after getting it down on there, and then I kind of got that one in there and started, and then I pivoted, just tapped it lightly with my rubber mallet, kind of knocked it over here into alignment till I could get this one over here that you see started through there, and then I just got through putting the 13 millimeter down there on that ear and tightening that down. I think we'll go ahead and just pop this belt back on real quick. I didn't take it off, just took it off of here. Okay, I'm just setting this back on there. Let's tighten those 8 millimeters, and we'll go ahead and reconnect this as well. Just push that safety lock back. Like I said, just gonna tighten those 8s up, and we cleaned the back side of that out really well while we had it off. Okay, now we're just getting ready to slide this piece right back onto our throttle body there. Okay, and we got this little connector we're just going to push back on here, and this just kind of clips up in here. But we've got the 10 millimeters. We're going to make sure that that's slid into place nicely, and we'll just get these 10 millimeters started. Okay, if you don't get this pushed on here good, you'll know it because you won't be able to get these two to line up and into place. Okay, so we got that. We're going to go ahead and get the rest of our intake on here at this point. Okay, and we got our air intake back on here. We're just getting this hose back into place. We're going to work on putting our windshield wiper motor and stuff on here, and then we'll work on slapping the rest of that cowl into place. Okay, so we're just getting our 4 bolts in this thing. We've got the 2 over here, got to go in, and then we've got a couple more that go down through here and into that piece and secure that. We're going to go ahead and get those snug down. Okay, we just reconnected this to our motor assembly here. We got those snug down. Okay, we're just getting ready to put this brace back into place. So I just left my screws up here. I'll actually have to take that one back out. But these just go over here on each side, and we'll get this locked down into place here. Okay, we're getting ready to set our cowl back up into place. I put a little white grease on there, so hopefully those don't stick as bad next time. Still got a few clips that go up here in the front that aren't broken. They clip down into them slots up there, and then there's the 2 screws. If we can get it turned around ever. So we're going to work it back up into place and try to get those 2 screws in up there, and see if we can't find our little plastic clips to pop back into here and here. Okay, so we're just getting these little Torx put back in here now. I think they were T35s. We're just going to go ahead and snug these down. We've got the other snaps and stuff into place. Okay, so when you put this on, make sure you got it in alignment where it's supposed to be. And if you come over here, I put a little mark right there, if you can see that, so I know it's centered with that. So before you go to cranking down on these things, make sure you got it into alignment. You'll be popping it back off again. Okay, so I just got these tightened, snug back down. Don't have to be terribly tight. We're just getting ready at this point. We're going to reconnect our negative cable over here if we can get it unstuck, and we'll see if we forgot to hook anything up here pretty soon. We're going to crank it up and see how it's doing, make sure everything's working as it should. Okay, so we got it cranked up and running here. It sounded a little bit off, but the throttle body was pretty dirty, and these intake gaskets being that they were leaking probably throw the computer off. It may have to readjust for a minute, but it's kind of smoothed out now and everything. So anyways, that's going to conclude this video. It got dark really quick. Hope you found it helpful. If you did, give it a thumbs up, and as always, I invite you to subscribe. Thank you for watching.